get by. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Steve Whittington, and Steve runs the Roadmap Agency. You can find them at weareroadmap.com. Steve, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes of the podcast people should check out. Two fan favorites. This is a part of the Top Agency series. I had Adi Clevin on. She's got an interesting niche. Steve, she is kind of an easy button for a company to create SOPs. So she comes in and helps them with, it could be client onboarding, it could be staff onboarding, it could be whatever they need to smooth out in their processes. And she'll come in, document it, and help them do that. And so check out that episode I did with Adi Clevin. Also, we just geeked out on our favorite productivity tools, really, in our tech stack. So that was a good one. Another one was Todd Taskey. He helps pair agencies with private equity. So he helps sell agencies. He's got the Second Bite podcast, because he found that sometimes with the private equity situation, these agencies will make more on the second bite than they do on the first, because private equity sells again. So that's an interesting episode in the landscape of agencies, valuations, and everything like that. So check that one out. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. And Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect their dream relationships. And how do we do that? We actually do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the strategy, the accountability, and the full execution. Now, Steve, we call ourselves the magic elves that run around in the background and make it look easy for the host of the company so they can create great content, create amazing relationships, and most importantly, run their business. You know, for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. I've found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you definitely should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. I'm excited to introduce Steve Whittington. He's president of Roadmap Agency, and they're dedicated to driving business results. And we'll talk about some of the things he sees clients struggling with. He focuses, and the company focuses on clients who are stuck, but want at least 2x growth. Their approach is really all encompassing. So they start with strategy and brand. They go into demand generation to sales and customer retention. And really they look at everything that's needed in that process. It could be web development systems, CRM, sales collaterals, playbooks, anything that will help make that happen. He's also CEO of BoomBright Media, that was actually incubated inside of Roadmap Agency, which is interesting, and we'll talk about that as well. So, Steve, thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here.
So just start off and tell us more about Roadmap and what you do.
For sure. So Roadmap was formed from two smaller agencies that were merged together to be able to meet the vision that the partners had, which was to support small to medium enterprises with a suite of tools that they need to go to the market successfully. What we saw in the marketplace was a lot of specialization happening. So somebody that would run SEO or paid ads or just build websites. And the truth of it is that a lot of the smaller companies or medium-sized companies don't need the very deep niche specialty. What they need is somebody that can look at everything and bring it all together to drive results. So Roadmap was formed with that intent in mind, from a brand agency and a web development and digital agency. And then my background, I was doing private consulting, and I call myself a recovering executive. And we pulled all that together to create a suite of capabilities that can support that group of clients.
Talk about why merge as opposed to referring back and forth. Merging is probably a lot of time, energy, and stress, I imagine. But I'm sure there's advantages to it as well. So what was the decision to merge as opposed to, hey, let's just refer back and forth and have a close-knit relationship?
The truth is we started that way to determine if there was going to be a fit with the partners. And so we were referring back and forth. But that that can be disjointed. You don't have the same culture. You don't have the same processes. And so if you really, really want to go to market in a unified way, you need to come together and agree to that. And that is more difficult. That is more challenging. But anything worth doing is not easy. But to your point, we trialed it out by doing referrals back and forth for about 12 months prior to actually merging.
Let's say someone's listening to this and like, this sounds really interesting. We have a really tight-knit partner that we're always referring back and forth, and we're considering, maybe we've never even thought of doing a merge or merging. What's a couple learnings from navigating that merger that you could share?
The first thing is to capture all the intents of the various new partners with a memorandum of understanding before you even get to a letter of intent or actually making it legal. So doing that first is get all the, and that's professional and legal and personal aspirations. So some people might look at merging with another entity as an ability to actually take some workload off them. So they're going to expect somebody that's better in business development to take that workload off them. So you have to get all that out on paper first, and that takes a while, and get everybody to agree to that. And then you've got, of course, the valuations and that stuff that has to be sorted through, and that can be tricky and challenging and emotional. And you got to sort through all that stuff, and there might be some cash injections from various partners to top things up and whatnot. So there's a pile of that.
There's a lot of moving pieces,
right? And that's all. So that takes some time. Okay. So once you've decided that you're going to be together, my next recommendation was get yourself an executive coach that holds the entire team together and learning how to work together for at least the first year. And we had the insight to do that because of some previous experiences we've had. And so we had that. And so we all had this executive coach that held us accountable and then worked with us on a one-to-one basis to make sure that we could gel the team. We did that for 2 years to really form a strong partnership. Even though, quite frankly, the partners had known each other, all had known each other for in excess of 10 years. Until you're working together, until you're in a very tight relationship together, it's a different story. So getting that outside perspective to hold different people accountable and have another lens on things and allow you to back away and be objective is critical, because there's a lot of emotions involved when you have people that have independent businesses and that are now part of something bigger, that somebody is now quote their boss that they're accountable to when they never used to be that way. So you have to consider all that. Or
they were independent and they'd have to answer anyone.
That's right. Yeah. Like a solo entrepreneur with like just contractors, which is, a lot of smaller agencies are that, right? One subject matter expert with a team of contractors. It's a different world, right?
Talk about how did you choose a coach? And I love to hear, how did they run the coaching sessions? Is the whole leadership team there? Do they do individual? Start off with, how did you even go about choosing a coach? It's obviously a really important decision because they're going to help lead the team a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Ernest Barbaric was the chap that we worked with, and great guy. I had known him for a while, but again, the other team members needed to feel comfortable, and so they had to interview him and talk with him and all that kind of stuff. So we had a bunch of options because I believe in coaching. I've had tons of coaches throughout my life and mentors, and been that for others folks. So, I take the medicine and I give it out. And so I believe in it. So we interviewed a number of coaches to see what was a good fit for the team. And Ernest ended up being a fit for the team. And he has, for what we needed, we didn't need someone to drive business results. We needed somebody with incredibly high emotional intelligence to be able to look at the various different partners and extract and support us in the different ways that we needed to be supported, and then figure out how to bring us together as one unit. He did a wonderful job of that, and had the skill set to be able to navigate those waters. So I wasn't looking for somebody to help me read a P&L or to create a strategy and initiatives and rocks on my EOS system. I was looking for somebody to help us form as a partnership team, and so have the emotional intelligence, which I lacked and needed, and he did that job wonderfully. and still works with us to this day.
Was he in, how were the sessions run? Did he start off with individual and then do a group, or
It was
how
a
did that work?
combination of both those.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And then do you remember any breakthroughs in particular that you could share from early on when you're first, like you said, sometimes emotions are high with their companies and there's a lot of moving pieces. What was a breakthrough that you had from working with Ernest?
Well, in particular, when we did the disc profiles and we learned, and that was up front, and we learned how all of us like to communicate and how we communicate and what's important to us. And so seeing those differences, and, some of us are polar opposites, right? And then having that understanding as to how we show up and how we hear each other, and the types of things that pushing a partner in a certain way that doesn't work for them. Like their personality profile they'll never be that, right? And so then being able to see that and understand it and go, okay, well, let's have you play to your strengths, as opposed to trying to get you to play to some place that you're just not strong. So acceptance of that, but he was just really good at coaching us through those mechanisms. But that was one of the big things early on, is really starting to understand our different strengths and weaknesses, and how we communicate and types of communication styles. As you can tell, I'm very direct. I'm a bit of a bull, right? And you have a partner that is more likes to listen and take things in. I'm like, well, let's figure this out, like right now. Like I'm ready to go, right? And they need to take time to think about things, right? And if you don't understand that, you're like, well, what's wrong?
You could take offense to it if you don't understand it.
Why can't we make a decision? Why can't we go, right? And they're just, you're like, are you indecisive? Like all these assumptions can pop up. So you really have to take that time and learn to understand each other, how you work. And the other side of it is unbelievable. We also used and continue to use a company called Unstoppable Communications, and they teach us different types of communication techniques so we can call each other out on stuff. Like, for instance, somebody's talking to me and I'm interpreting it in a certain way, and I'm hearing something, which isn't what they're saying. I'm interpreting through my lens and hearing it. And now we have the tools that they could say, Steve, are you creating a story in your head? What are you hearing when I'm saying this? And we can talk about this. Well, what I'm hearing you say is this, and we won't take offense to it. It's like we understand that I have a certain types of lens and I hear it a certain way, and this person is trying to express this, and so we can really be heard. And that it's so hard to put like ROI. Like I'm a numbers guy, right? Like, so how do you put ROI in this kind of stuff, right? Well, I look at like, how fast can we work through issues? What kind of like distractions do we have from poor communication, in the organization? How do people feel like that they can be heard? That stuff is so important, and it's hard to put ROI on it. But I mean, every single team member has the comfort level to be able to call me out on my stories as the president. And they can just say, hey, can we have a conversation, right? And all the partners are the same way. And so I don't know what the value of that is, but I know the working capacity of our organization is greatly increased because we have those communication tools and that emotional intelligence to be able to do that kind of stuff. And it just gets rid of a bunch of other stuff that's baggage, right? So, yeah.
It's really interesting because
stuff.
It's like people are perceiving, maybe they're just sensing, they're perceiving, maybe you're perceiving something or someone else is perceiving, I mean, not the way they're meaning for it to be perceived. And then they kind of, let's have an open conversation about it. I bet a lot of that helps with people's personal lives. They're probably bringing the stuff that they're learning from Unstoppable
100%.
Communication back to personal life, right?
You have a new set of tools to communicate with your spouse. So for sure. And other important folks in your life.
What was, you mentioned like you're very ROI focused. How did Unstoppable Communications using them get brought to the table? Because I imagine someone who is more, numbers driven may push back against that decision initially.
Yeah, well, I was lucky in the fact that as an executive, they were brought to the table and without my support initially, and and I was kind of on the fence about it, even though I had met them and was like looking at stuff. I knew we needed some coaches in another organization. So, you know, they had a different way of showing up, and so I was intrigued. And I knew we had different sort of challenges in the organization we were in, a family-run business with a lot of emotional attachments, and so. So they stopped all the stuff that was going on, all the stories and everything like that, and it really changed that culture there. So I had years of that with them. So I was the one that brought them to the agency life because I could see the impact. Right.
Love it. No, thanks for sharing that. I mentioned at the front of the interview about clients coming to you with certain struggles and maybe what they think they struggle with and what maybe they actually struggle with. So can you talk about when clients show up for you and what are they saying they're struggling with? And then you kind of walk through your process a little bit.
Yeah, well, you know, it's really interesting. We've positioned ourselves in a certain way as an organization that helps people with their go-to-market function. The truth of it is most people don't have a clue what the heck that means. So maybe we have to get our marketing speak a little better. But that's the challenge, is that they come to us looking for a 10-word answer. I need a new website. So can you give me a quote, and what does that look like? And you're like, yeah, okay, that's one of the pieces in your toolbox that you're going to need. And so when we start to ask, what is your expectations around that? What are you trying to achieve? What are some of the supports that you have in place? Do you have a sales process that this is supporting? What does sales need? Is your brand in place? Do you know what your unique value prop is for your clients? Do you need to have pricing on here? There's just a ton of stuff, right? And it keeps going in different layers. And so what they quite understand is they come to us with this single need or problem or challenge.
Like they know their website is not good, or it's not
Yeah.
like helping them accomplish their goals.
Yeah. And so we call it it's like category entry points, right? They come to us in a certain thing, right? And then it just opens up all the other needs that they have. The others, sometimes though, they come to us and they just say, listen, I need leads. What do I need to do to get leads? And it's like, well, geez, that's a pretty open-ended, like there's many different ways. Like, what are we doing here? Or do we have an outbound function? Do you have a sales team? Like maybe you don't need marketing, maybe you just need a better sales team. And we do approach things strategy first, but it's not unique, but it's like we are a very sales focused agency supporting the sales process. So we implement HubSpot as the CRM we implement, but we do the CRM first, the sales hub first, as opposed to the marketing hub or the service hub. Because I'm like, I need to get your sales team tidied up and delivering, make sure that's tight. If you already got leads coming in and you're pouring them into a bucket full of holes, what are we doing? Let's get that tight first. Let's get a hold of the band you already got and clean it up and optimize it.
It's like if someone's going on like a journey or something, and hey, we just need to go over, let's hop in the boat and go. Like you're looking at, let's optimize this boat that we have and patch any holes so that actually we can get on course first. Yeah.
And you get that size of organization, which is incredible. In the private sector, it's like, depending on the developed economy you're in, but in Canada anyway, it's like 98 or 99% of businesses are small to medium enterprises. And that's where the large enterprises, eventually come from. You got to support that group, and they're struggling. They got a great idea, but they're either not sales professionals, or they're not marketing professionals, or they don't have, the organizational ability to, like, the capacity to organize their organization with a whole client journey and all the way through delivery. But that's what they need. And so we formed this group to do that, to put them through that entire process. So they come to us with an immediate pain point, and we immediately start to build out all the different needs that they need.
Steve, what size clients do you typically work with?
Well, generally we find the clients that we have the most success with are their revenues, and again, it depends on sector. But if you're a professional service organization, $2 million in revenue is is larger than somebody that sells goods with a margin, right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's about 2.5 to 25 million tends to be the group that most of our clients fall into, that size. Although we do have one's bigger and we have one smaller.
You talk about there's a lot of things that have to happen. Someone's like, oh, I want leads, I want a website. You even go back to thinking about product market fit for them,
Yeah, 100%.
and maybe talk about BoomBright Media journey, because you eat your own dog food, and start there and how that was incubated.
Yeah, so years ago now, people in my network had a business idea, and I said, okay, well, if we're going to be a startup, what we need to do is we have to follow this process. So first, we need to determine if we have product market fit, and so to do that, we needed to get the product, get the pricing, get the service requirements, and go to market and get some trials and get some stuff into the marketplace. So over the course of 24 months, we did a few projects without really any marketing, just off the side of our desk, determining if there is product market fit for what we see in the marketplace, and a ton of research as well, looking at that kind of stuff. So and the original company was a placeholder name called ProTech Media. So we had that in place. We determined product market fit, built out a business plan, then determined the funding requirements that we needed. So how much capital do we need to get this thing going, right? So then got some investment dollars, partly through self-funding and outside investors, and then taking our own medicine. Well, what do you do? Well, first you get your brand in place. So that's where the name BoomBright comes. So we created a brand. We created all the go-to-market tools, CRM, website, demand generation campaigns. And again, firing bullets instead of cannonballs, we captured intent in the market and then started to specialize with different types of demand generation campaigns, and then continued to build out the sales process to the point now where full-time salesperson, all that kind of stuff is occurring. And we launched this just recently, June of 2023. So it's a brand new launch. The company's been around for a while, but we took a lot of time to get to that point so we could have a successful launch. And gosh darn it, in 6 months, we had, $1.6 million in pipeline volume. So pretty happy with where we got in such a short time. But we didn't get lucky. We were prepared for luck. And we are lucky in the fact that the market is responding as per our research, as per our initial probes in the marketplace with product market fit. So it's nice that it's being proven out after you did. There's always some risk, right? But we went about it in a step process instead of having to go back and now develop a brand. So we had a strategy session before we launched the brand, and we have all that in place. So we're executing upon a plan which includes creating your foundations first, having your brand foundation in place, having all your different strategic narrative in place, knowing what your unique value proposition is, having a website that converts, and demand generation campaigns, sales talking track, CRM, all that stuff ready to go. So when you hit the marketplace, you are showing up as an organization that is not scrambling, but very sophisticated and is able to meet the needs of the marketplace.
Steve, I know a lot of times with startups, what they start doing is not always what they end up doing, because the market is asking things or giving changes. Talk about BoomBright, and maybe it is the same, but what are the initial idea versus what's it doing now?
Yeah, so there's been pivots for sure. That's why we trialed some products into the marketplace. And we were actually one of it was kind of a flip. We felt like one product line would be much more better received and to be a bigger portion of our revenues than another product line. And it's been a complete flip. So we had both product lines available. We totally read it wrong, and we got out. That's why you get in the marketplace.
You let the market decide.
Right. So we were prepared for both, but we had totally didn't anticipate it to go that way. And some things have been harder than we thought, like way harder than we thought.
Excellent.
And that's fine. We sort of, some things we thought would be easy have been hard. Some things we thought would be hard have been easy. So there's been a bit of that, but yeah, that's why you did that initial phase of getting
What was the
testing things
flip?
up.
You said there was initially you
So
thought this would be better than
we
this. Yeah.
felt that projection would be far more of our business than the basically the physical hard LED walls. So that was something that we
As you can see here, right? So like there is the audio version, but there is a video version. We're actually looking at this. So this is the LED version that you're talking about here?
That's an LED wall. Yep.
LED wall. Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's cool looking.
Yeah. So the other thing is that we didn't realize that we'd be getting into design thinking as fast as as it happens. So we did anticipate that need in the marketplace, but it just we didn't realize how much it was needed and how much clients are asking for it. So yeah, there's been a number of pivots, but I mean, at the end of the day, we had everything on the bullseye. It just certain things moved closer to the center and outside and that kind of stuff. So, but there was a ton of research that went into it. So, yeah.
Talk about the mistakes in the sales process. A lot of times you are going in and really you and your team are dissecting and looking at the sales process for these companies that you're helping. Because if something's leaking, well, you don't want to pour more stuff into it. So what are some major mistakes that you find that are common that people are making in their sales process?
Yeah. So first, not having one. Let's be clear. Most companies think they have a sales process and they don't. And then at best, they might have stages, but they haven't thought through all the different requirements in those stages, like how do you enter it? What's the description of it? What are the requirements and how do you get out of it? So they haven't thought through that stuff. Then they haven't created automation to create accountability for their sales process. So that's a big thing. So things just don't get followed up with, things don't get responded to, and they don't have all the requirements that needed. They've undervalued the impact of playbooks, making sure that consistent questions, consistent process happens in every single stage. And then, forecasting is the next big thing. They don't have the effective tools to forecasting because they haven't done the work. They haven't asked the right questions. They don't have that type of ability in their sales process to provide them with information to forecast, like when a deal is going to close and that sort of thing. They're not doing like account-based forecasting with their team, like how much they're going to get for annual revenues from this account and that stuff. So yeah, those are some big things. So lack of process, not having automation in the process, not having depth in the process, different supports in it like playbooks, and just not utilizing standardization, right? And then having this whole process that you look at and then you continually optimize and improve, right? And then the last thing I got to say is that, man, if you're not infusing AI into your sales process now, you're behind. Like it saves me 5 to 10 hours a week in our personal selling for my businesses, because it's like another salesperson for me.
How are you using AI?
So I do a lot of discovery meetings. So one of the big savers for me is obviously AI is recording the meetings, and so it takes notes for me, and then with the follow-ups. So then automation that way. I'm using AI to profile people so I understand what's important to them. I'm using it to analyze the outcome of the call so I can see some of the influencers on the call. So I can call somebody back like a VP and I say, well, geez, how did your sales team do on that call when I say demo CRM? And they're like, yeah, some of us were interested. I'm like, well, Bob was really interested. He's like, yeah, no, Bob was really interested. And I'm like, well, do you know how I know that? They're like, no. I'm like, well, I have it all profiled. I can see who had the highest engagement. And they're like, well, that makes sense because, he really wants a CRM. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk with Bob. Let's get him to be a supporter, a star to help make this project happen, because you get him on side and then you can bring others on side, right? So like you think, well, geez, that's a little thing, just a little thing, having that insight, but man, it makes a big difference having those like it's like that 1% equals like 15% closer to the close.
Well, it's also kind of, I mean, to someone, I guess the analogy I use is like magic, right? It feels like a magic trick sometimes for
Sure.
people, and it's impressive. Like, oh, how'd you know that, right?
Yeah.
Even though, obviously the magician knows how they did the trick, but other people don't.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I talk to ChatGPT at night all the time. Like I have our own spun up GPT, and I take my sales plan, I run my sales plan through it, let ChatGPT tell me what I should be focusing on. I could take conversations, say, hey, this is what I think is important. What do you think is important? I use it in a number of ways to help extract insights. And again, what I will say is that this isn't just saving me time. This is giving me stuff that I either overlooked. Like, and so like my focus, when I know the notes are being taken now, I can focus on the conversation, and then I get extractions from that I would have potentially overlooked, but I'm more engaged in the sales process as a result of the fact that I'm not taking notes for the follow-up conversations.
What are some, from a tech stack perspective, some of your favorite tools? I know you mentioned HubSpot. What are some other ones that you like?
So from a sales tech stack, Zoom, HubSpot, obviously your email provider, which could be Gmail, Outlook, whatever, right? Sybil for note taking, Humanic AI for profiling, ChatGPT is in there, and then of course Sales Navigator for LinkedIn.
Love it. Thanks for sharing that. Super helpful. And I could see how, if one of those pieces of the sales process is missing, it doesn't work sometimes. Like you mentioned follow-up, for instance. Like it's probably very rare where someone's like, yeah, let's do this after the first conversation. It takes time for people to do that. So I love how you kind of broke those things down, because if one of them's missing, the rest sometimes doesn't work. I'd love to talk through an example, and maybe I'm not sure if ecopoxy or CLS is better, but I'll let you choose. You mentioned something before we hit record, which I thought was a great quotable moment. So I'm just going to repeat it. You said, we drive initiatives, not projects.
Right.
That's a great quote. I love that. So which one, just share the journey and what you did with, I don't know, either Sky and Table or CLS.
I'll pick Sky and Table. Great organization, great folks. So Sky and Table has continued to evolve. Their business has continued to evolve. They're very successful entrepreneurial leadership team, and they got into different types of businesses over the years. And what they needed to do was consolidate their businesses under a new brand, which is Sky and Table, and get clarity on that, and get clarity on where they needed to play. So what businesses lines that they started to expand into that they needed to sort of maybe come back to the center. So they worked with Roadmap in a business coaching engagement, in helping them with their go-to-market and helping them with website, brand development, CRM implementation, essentially the full gambit of services, SEO, SEM, all that stuff. And it's been a wonderful journey that we've been driving the initiative of developing this business in such a way that it's a more it's got an umbrella brand now, which is Sky and Table. It's got clarity on its business lines. It's got strategic plans in place, and I can't say everything, but I mean we've got this plan, the CEO and us, about where we're going with the executive team. And we're driving all these different initiatives are leaning to that master plan, which is literally 5 to 10 years off in the future. We're thinking that far ahead, and these are all pieces of the puzzle to get there. So, for instance, 3 years ago, it was identified that we needed to do a rebrand, but we waited for the proper time to be ready as an organization to do that. So we've been working with them, driving these different strategic initiatives, but we had a bunch of other things that were higher priority to tidy up first. So like, hey, the sales team did not have a CRM. Let's get that in place. We don't have control over the different ads that we're running. Our agency of record is moving away. We need to get that tidied up. What should we do with this business line? It's losing money. So let's dump that. Let's get that cleaned up. right? So then it came around to now it's time to look at the brand, and so then it was rebranded, and legacy brands were protected and connected, and yeah, they just keep moving up and to the right. Great organization, but they're taking the time to put the foundations in place and march it out, right? And we're here beside them.
How did you get into this agency world?
Well, it goes back to the 90s. So I was a dot-com kid and in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and got a bunch of venture capital money. So before Dragon's Den, there's a show on CBC called Venture. And interesting stat is that anybody who's on Venture went out of business, and my dot-com was different.
That was like pre Dragon's Den, so it's not around anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
There wasn't a panel back then, but yeah, that show doesn't exist anymore. But that was, I think, the incubator for Dragon's Den. They needed a more successful reality TV format. It was more of a journalistic format, journalism format back then. At any rate, so being a dot-com kid and crash and burn, I got picked up by a web development agency, and basically went around selling websites in 2000. And anybody would buy a website from somebody that was a dot-com kid. So it was easy peasy, right?
I would think they'd be like, Steve, what do I need a website for at that time? Right. I don't know if you were getting pushback.
There was a lot of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I had cachet from being a dot-com kid, right? So it worked out.
He must be right. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. Even though I didn't have a hot clue. So I didn't know what their business needed. I figured it out on the fly, right? So I was in the agency world then. I had known that my path was such that I was, either going to be an entrepreneur again or become a corporate executive. So I got picked up by one of the clients to move into a corporate executive, and then did that for 25 years. But kept investing in businesses and some small agencies along the way. And just wanted to get back into this lifestyle because I saw a need, and I ironically feel like owning your own business is a better work-life balance than being an executive. So,
what did you learn about leadership being a corporate executive? Because it feels like maybe there's more formal training there than just launching into your own company.
Yeah. I mean, and I was with bigger, mid-sized family-owned businesses. So there's a ton of emotional intelligence that comes with leadership, and you do a lot like that servant leadership style things, which is nothing new, right? But that concept of being 100% responsible. So, as a leader, you're responsible for driving results, but you have to be responsible for how you're impacting the team that you're leading. So it's not just about getting the result, it's about how you make other people feel along the way to get the results. So yeah, it really was that concept of 100% responsibility really sat home with me, because at the beginning of my career, I just was hard driving, get the results, didn't care about the toes I stepped on or noses I broke along the way. And I was lucky. I got coached by a lot of people, and like some of the senior leaders said, we love your drive, we love what you do, but man, you're making no friends. And so they took the time to put me aside to help me focus on relationships. And so that's the one big thing one of the biggest things I got out of the corporate leadership world was, ironically, was at least the organizations I was part of really made it an emphasis to focus on relationships, and then together as a team, you'll get the results you're looking for.
Are you like a hockey defenseman enforcer? Is that how you compare yourself?
I play defense in hockey. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, got it. First of all, Steve, thanks for sharing. I have one last question. Thanks for sharing your journey, your lessons. I want to encourage people to check out weareroadmap.com to learn more. My last question is just some of your favorite resources. It could be favorite business books. It could be mentors that you've had. What are some of your favorite when you think of business resources over the years?
If we're at my home, you'd see there'd be a 2-story bookshelf behind me with a catwalk. So I love reading. So I have a lot, and I even have some in my office here behind me. I've written a book called Thriving in the Customer Age. I did that. It was a kind of a prescriptive 101 for marketing metrics back in 2019, I guess.
Nice.
At any rate, the business books that have the biggest impact on me, and I'll go with books, Good to Great, Jim Collins, classic, lessons there constantly. Extract, like HubSpot uses the flywheel concept. Scaling Up and Traction. You've got Scaling Up, and then you got EOS from Traction. Fantastic books. From Strategy, Playing to Win. These are all just frameworks that I feel that we utilize and we implement for our clients. And Scaling Up is like drinking from a fire hose. They reference so many other business philosophies and books in that you really have to be fairly well read to extract good value out of Scaling Up. And therefore Traction actually is a little bit references Scaling Up, but is perhaps an easier read and a little bit more of an easier system. But either of those two ones are, very impactful. My book Scaling Up, I pick it up and it falls apart. And these are all required reading for people in my agency. You have to read Playing to Win. You have to read Traction so that we're all talking the same language. I gotta say the other thing that's been impactful for me is just engaging with other thought leaders on LinkedIn. You can learn so much if you actually interact and engage and ask questions and just be out there and be open to new ideas.
Love it. And if you're looking at the video right now, you can see here is Thriving in the Customer Age, 8 key metrics to transform your business results. And this is Steve's book here. I encourage people, they can check out the interview I did with Gino Wickman, who's the author of Traction, also with Vern Harnish, who's the author of Scaling Up. So check those episodes out and many, many more. And check out weareroadmap.com. And I want to be the first one, Steve, to thank you. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, and we'll see everyone next time. Thanks, Steve.
Bye for now.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like $100 grand.